3 days ago, my girlfriend looked me in the eye at our engagement dinner and said, "This is non-negotiable. Mason has been in my life longer than you have. He stays, or we end this here." So I called my lawyer. I am 33, work as a civil engineer here in Austin, and I thought I knew the woman I was planning to marry. Turns out I didn't know her at all. So here is what happened. We are at Jeffrey's downtown with both our families, 12 people total. Everything's going fine. We are talking about wedding plans. My parents are getting along great with hers. Sloane's parents, Greg and Elaine, are these polished professional types. He is a retired attorney. She is a marriage therapist who writes this blog about evolved relationships. They have always been a little intense about their progressive parenting philosophy. But I figured that was just their thing. We are halfway through dinner when Sloane slides this glossy packet across the table to me. Color-coded tabs, professional binding, the whole 9 yards. The title reads Family of Choice Agreement, and I am thinking this is some kind of joke. But everyone goes quiet, and she is looking at me with this serious expression. Mason isn't some cartoon villain either. He is this soft-spoken photographer who talks about emotional architecture and sustainable love frameworks. The guy probably thinks he invented polyamory, but watching him nod approvingly when Sloane delivered that ultimatum, that is when I realized he was fully invested in this fantasy. I open it up and, guys, I still cannot believe what I read. This thing had clauses about how her ex-boyfriend Mason needs to remain a permanent family member after we get married. Like, invited to all holidays, birthdays, major life events. There is even a section listing him as a creative advisor for our wedding brand campaign. Our wedding brand campaign. I didn't even know we had one of those. The restaurant is dead silent now. My parents look like they have seen a ghost. Sloane's mom is beaming like, "This is the greatest thing ever," and her dad nods approvingly. Then Sloane looks me right in the eye and delivers that line about Mason being in her life longer than me. I folded the packet, placed it next to my plate, and said understood. Then I stood up, thanked everyone for dinner, and walked out. Didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't make a scene, just left. When someone hands you a contract about your future children at an engagement dinner, they are not planning a marriage. They are planning a merger. The drive home was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept thinking maybe I misunderstood something. Maybe there was context I was missing. But no, she literally presented me with a contract requiring me to accept her ex-boyfriend as a permanent family member at our engagement dinner, in front of both our families. When I got home, I forwarded the whole thing to my friend Tessa, who is a corporate lawyer. Subject line: "You are going to want to read this." She called me back in 6 minutes flat. Her exact words were, "We are documenting everything starting now." I spent that night going through our shared accounts, revoked her access to my credit card, removed her from the wedding registry account, changed the passwords on the utilities and Wi-Fi for my condo. Then I forwarded the entire packet to my parents with one line: "I am done pretending she respects me." But wait, it gets worse. The next morning I wake up to an email from Greg with the subject line addendum to prenup draft. Inside is this legal document where Mason is listed as a godparent advisor for all future family branding and child-raising decisions. Family branding for kids we don't even have yet. I stared at that screen for about 10 minutes, then called Tessa. All I could say was, it is not love anymore. It is strategy. So Reddit, am I completely insane here? Was walking out the right move? Because Sloane has been blowing up my phone saying I embarrassed her family and that I am being controlling and regressive. Her mom posted something on her blog about partners who fear your freedom, and I am pretty sure she is talking about me. I haven't responded to any of it because honestly, I don't even know what to say. I keep going back to that moment when she said Mason stays or we are done. Like, who gives their partner an ultimatum like that? At an engagement dinner in front of both families, with a printed contract. Maybe I am old-fashioned, but I thought marriage meant choosing each other first, not signing legal documents to preserve your relationship with your ex-boyfriend. What do you think? Did I handle this right, or did I just blow up my life over nothing? Update 1. Okay, Reddit. Well, things have gotten significantly more complicated. Tessa has been incredible through all this. She immediately started documenting everything because she said something felt off about the whole situation. Turns out her instincts were right. So here is what we discovered. Elaine, Sloane's mom, is the sole signer on every single wedding vendor contract. Every single one. The venue, catering, flowers, music, everything, total value, $145,000. And get this. Mason's photography company has already been paid $8,500 for creative direction on our wedding visuals. Our wedding that we haven't even had yet. The good news is I have zero legal liability for any of it. Every contract ties back to Elaine. Tessa said it is like they were planning a business event, not a wedding. Then there is the credit card situation. Remember how I revoked Sloane's access to my card? Well, Tessa had me pull the statements first. $6,200 in charges that violated our written agreement about wedding expenses only, spa weekends, designer dress rentals, and something called a wedding mood board studio session that Mason billed directly to my card. The weird part is, Mason genuinely believes he is helping. Rachel showed me a text where he wrote, "I am not trying to steal her back. I am trying to protect what we built together." Some connections transcend romantic labels. He actually thinks he is the mature one here. I disputed all the charges with the bank, and they froze the card pending investigation. Sloane was not happy about that. Her texts went from apologetic to furious pretty quickly. But here is where it gets really interesting. Elaine published a blog post titled "When Partners Fear Your Freedom" about a controlling fiancé who couldn't handle evolved love. She didn't name me directly, but everyone who knows us would know exactly who she was talking about. Several friends sent me screenshots. The next day, my company's HR department received an anonymous email questioning my emotional stability. Can you believe that? Someone actually tried to get me in trouble at work over this. Fortunately, my friend Miguel forwarded me the email because he works in our IT department, and he was able to trace the IP address back to Elaine's therapy office. HR investigated and I submitted everything. The ultimatum document, the prenup addendum, screenshots of the blog post, the whole timeline. They quietly dismissed the complaint and actually commended me for handling a personal situation professionally. Then something unexpected happened. Rachel, who was Sloane's roommate in college and still does styling work for her, reached out to me privately. She sent me text message screenshots between Sloane, Elaine, and Mason from the week before our dinner. They were literally planning to stage that conversation about boundaries so that if I backed out, I would look regressive and controlling Tessa's response when I showed her. Perfect, that is premeditation. Keep this sealed until we need it. I realized I wasn't her fiancé. I was her target demographic. The most recent development is that Elaine is apparently threatening to sue me for emotional distress over my public walkout from the restaurant. Tessa just laughed when I told her. Her exact words were, "Let her try. She has already made your defense airtight." I have to admit, I am exhausted by all this. I thought I was just walking away from a bad relationship decision, but it feels like I stumbled into some kind of elaborate scheme. The woman I thought I loved had her family lawyer draft documents about her ex-boyfriend being involved in raising our hypothetical children. Like, what even is that? My parents have been amazing through this whole thing. My dad, who never says much, just told me, "Son, you dodged a bullet." My mom keeps bringing me food and asking if I am eating enough. It is nice to remember what normal family support looks like. I will keep you posted if anything else happens. Apparently, this isn't over yet. Update to Reddit. I cannot believe I am back here again. But this situation just keeps escalating in ways I never could have predicted. Thank you to everyone who has been following along and offering support. Your comments have honestly kept me sane through this whole mess. So Greg arranged what he called a neutral family meeting at a community center downtown. Both families attended, plus Tessa came as my advocate. I figured this would be where we worked out a peaceful separation and moved on with our lives. I was so wrong. Sloane opened by offering what she called a compromise. Mason could step back from family holidays, but he needed to retain creative authority over her public image, as what she called a family brand. She said this like it was a generous concession. I had prepared for this meeting. Tessa helped me put together a presentation, and I brought a projector. I showed everyone the text messages Rachel had given me proving they planned the whole dinner stunt. I showed them the invoices proving payments to Mason's company from wedding funds, the bank statements showing misuse of my credit card, the prenup addendum listing Mason as a godparent advisor. Greg's composure completely broke. This calm professional attorney started raising his voice, saying the Whitakers would not tolerate defamation. Tessa leaned forward and said very quietly, "Defamation requires falsehood. We have receipts." That is when Elaine started crying and talking about how they just wanted to create a new model for modern love, how they were trying to show the world that families could be chosen and expanded beyond traditional boundaries, how I was destroying something beautiful because I was threatened by their emotional evolution. The meeting ended with no resolution. Both families left angry, but here is where this story takes a turn I never saw coming. Rachel reached out again a few days later with something that changed everything. She had found a pitch deck on Mason's computer titled The Modern Family Brand, Turning Love into Legacy. This document laid out a complete business plan for monetizing my marriage to Sloan. They were going to market her as the poster child for open emotional partnerships. There were projected revenue streams from sponsorships, weekend retreats, a book deal about evolved relationships. The whole thing was designed around Noah, that is me, agreeing to be the supportive traditional partner who learned to embrace progressive love. My marriage was literally going to be their business model. Mason and Elaine had been planning this for months, probably since before Sloan and I got engaged. I was never her fiancé. I was their target demographic. Tessa reviewed the pitch deck and told me I had two options. We could expose this publicly and create a viral scandal that would destroy their careers and reputations, or we could stay quiet, finish the bank dispute, and let them collapse under their own contradictions. I chose silence. As tempting as public revenge was, I told Tessa let the truth rot them from the inside. The consequences have been swift. Sloan lost 2 major brand partnerships, but honestly, most of her sponsors stayed. The influencer world is pretty forgiving if your follower count stays stable. She is still posting, but the comments section tells a different story. Mason's photography studio lost 2 major clients after screenshots of his co-parenting brand pitch somehow made their way to potential customers. Elaine's blog is being flooded with comments from people asking when they get to invite their exes to Thanksgiving. 3 weeks after our family meeting, the Whitaker's attorney sent me a draft lawsuit for public humiliation and breach of emotional contract. Yes, emotional contract. Apparently that is something they think exists. Tessa's response was to file a cease and desist along with an anti-slap counter warning for defamation. She also delivered a complete chronological timeline of events: the dinner stunt, the blog post, the credit card misuse, the business pitch deck, everything. I am waiting to see what happens next, but Tessa seems confident. Her final message to me that night was don't blink. The end game is ours, not yet, but soon. I keep thinking about that engagement dinner, how confident Sloan looked when she slid that packet across the table. She thought she was calling my bluff. She never considered that some people mean it when they say no. I have started sleeping better. I bought some plants for my condo. I am hiking on weekends again. It is amazing how much energy you get back when you stop pretending someone respects you. More updates to come, I am sure. Final update. Well, Reddit. This is probably my last update on this whole saga. Thank you to everyone who followed along and offered support. This community kept me grounded when everything felt completely insane. The mediation process was brutal. 3 hours in a sterile conference room with both families and 2 attorneys. Greg tried to paint me as an unstable partner who couldn't handle evolved love concepts. Elaine kept referring to Mason as family infrastructure. But when Tessa presented the business pitch deck, the room went dead silent. You could actually watch Greg realize his daughter had been planning to monetize her marriage. Elaine stopped talking about emotional evolution and started talking about misunderstandings. The settlement took 2 weeks to finalize. Every clause was negotiated like a corporate merger. But watching them sign those non-disparagement agreements, that is when I knew it was really over. The terms were simple. I agreed to drop my credit card dispute on 2 borderline charges that weren't worth fighting over. In exchange, Elaine and Greg accepted full financial liability for all wedding contracts and agreed to a binding non-disparagement clause. Sloan signed a no-contact agreement. Mason signed a cease and desist preventing him from using my name, likeness, or any references to our situation in his business. Everything is sealed, quiet, and irreversible. The consequences for each of them have been swift but realistic. Sloan tried to rebrand herself as a relationship coach on Instagram, but she lost most of her sponsors and only kept a few low-tier partnerships. Her book deal fell through after the publisher got wind of the controversy. She is still posting occasionally, but the engagement numbers tell the story. Elaine shut down her blog for what she called a personal break after her professional ethics board received multiple anonymous complaints about mixing therapy practice with family promotion. Greg retreated into complete silence. His attempt to modernize family law through my relationship backfired spectacularly. Mason's photography business took a hit, but he is rebuilding in Denver. Some people actually respect his honesty about modern relationships. It bothers me that he is not completely ruined, but Tessa reminded me that perfect justice only exists in movies. As for me, life has gotten remarkably peaceful. My HR department quietly praised me for handling what they called a deeply complex personal situation with complete professionalism. The infrastructure project I have been working on, an affordable housing development called East Side Infill, won an Austin Urban Innovation Grant. I bought a small house with reclaimed wood siding and planted native oak trees in the backyard. I am sleeping through the night again for the first time in months. There is something deeply satisfying about building things that will outlast whatever drama people try to create. At a community volunteer build last month, I met Harper, an environmental architect from Dallas, who was in town consulting on sustainable design. We talked about stormwater drainage and green building materials over coffee. There was no cinematic spark, no dramatic chemistry, just ease. Just two people who understand that good foundations matter more than flashy exteriors. 1 year after that engagement dinner from hell, I attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the new community playground I helped design. Kids were running and laughing, sunlight was glinting off the slide, and a volunteer handed me a wrench to help with some final adjustments. My phone buzzed with an email from the bank, case closed. No impact to credit rating. I exhaled, wiped sweat from my forehead, and kept working. A local journalist asked if I wanted to be in the photo for the newspaper. I smiled and said I am good being behind the camera this time. Public ultimatums only work on people afraid to lose you. I stopped being afraid. The most valuable thing Tessa told me was this: never negotiate with someone who doesn't respect your right to say no. That wisdom has changed how I approach every relationship in my life. To anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts. If someone is asking you to accept unacceptable terms, they are telling you exactly who they are. Believe them the first time. I am done with this chapter of my life. Time to build something better. Edit. Posted this morning. Already 500+ comments. Thanks for all the support, Reddit.